Hey guys, it's Mark here. Today I got a different type of video, although it's tennis related. Instead of showing highlights or a compilation, I'm going to showcase my tier list of Federer's career. This basically means that in a ranking of F, E, D, C, B, A, and S, from worst to best, I will put a year of Federer's tennis career in one of those 7 categories based on performance, results, and much more. I won't show 2020 since he was mostly gone from it, although I will show years where at one point he was injured, like in 2016. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you think that there should be any changes, let me know in the comments and we can discuss it. I'm always down to listen to other people's suggestions. Starting in the F category, which is Federer's absolute worst years, we have 3 consecutive years, 1998, 1999, and 2000. This was when Federer first started playing on the tour and developed the experience and consistency to where he is today. As expected, he didn't have big results, and although he played some of the best players at the time, like Pat Rafter and Andre Agassi, he didn't get any big wins against them. Obviously, Federer didn't have high expectations at his young age, so none of this was really a surprise, but I do think F is the best fit for those years. This may be strange to compare with Federer's younger years, but I also put 2013 on this list. Without a doubt, this was Federer's worst year in terms of form ever since he first started winning Grand Slams. After a small back injury, his level was lower than usual and there were many surprising upsets, including ones where Stakhovsky beat him in the second round of Wimbledon, Robredo straight-setted him at the US Open, and Delbonis also beating him comfortably in Hamburg. He also didn't do well against his 3 biggest rivals, Nadal, Djokovic, and Murray, as he didn't get a single win against them that year. In conclusion, Federer underperformed greatly this year, which has caused 2013 to be on the F tier. Next we have the E rank, which means that these weren't horrific years like in the F category, but they were still pretty rough and very improvable. We're going to start with 2001 and 2002. In these 2 years, Federer became a much better player than he was in previous years, getting more routine wins and winning against top players like Safin, Kafelnikov, Roddick multiple times, and Sampras in the famous Wimbledon encounter. While Federer went up in the rankings a lot, there was still some inconsistencies in tournaments as he didn't go far in many of them and he lost to multiple top players. The third and last year in this category is 2016. To be fair, Federer was injured and had to miss the whole second half of the year, but prior to that, he would not do that well, especially in the important matches. He only made it to one final, which was in Brisbane, and lost in all 3 grass court tournaments that he played in before taking a 6-month break from tennis. After this, we got the next rank D, which is at a much better level compared to the previous ranks, but there are still some problems. The first year is 2011. For a year where Federer didn't win any Grand Slams, it was surprisingly great. Federer lost plenty of matches to Nadal and Djokovic, and there were a few moments of level drops, but he put on a clinic against prime Djokovic at the French Open, and ended the year winning Basel, Paris, and the World Tour Finals. 2014 had even more wins in 2011, but Federer lost to a more variety of players. It was the first year in the 2010s decade where there was a Grand Slam won that wasn't by the Big Four member. Wawrinka in the Australian Open, and Cilic in the US Open. So Federer wasn't really dominating at one point in the season. Unfortunately, he also lost a chance to win Wimbledon that year in a 5-setter against Djokovic. 2018 is the only year in this category with a Grand Slam win, and the reason I didn't put it higher is because Federer's level of play dropped steadily over the course of the year. After his Australian Open and Rotterdam wins, he started to have some shocking losses, getting upset by players like Coric, Kokkinakis, and Millman. Although this year was quite different than the others listed, I believe D is a good rank for 2018. 2019 was interesting because Federer had some great moments, like making it to the semis at the French after not playing it since 2015, and was just a point away from winning Wimbledon. But there were moments of bad consistency as well, as he straight-setted Djokovic, but then his level noticeably dropped and he lost to Tsitsipas, although kudos to him for winning the whole World Tour Finals. For being 37 to 38 years old, however, he actually played solid the whole year, but just didn't do anything huge to make 2019 go higher. Now this was probably the hardest tier to put the years in, so if you disagree, I apologize, and like I said earlier, we can always discuss my picks. Now we are in the C category. This is where Federer had some decent years for his standards, almost all of them winning at least one Grand Slam. The first half of 2003 wasn't really anything special and was similar to 2001 and 2002, but at Wimbledon and the Masters Cup, Federer took it up a notch and put on superb matches to win them. This is what would lead up to Federer's prime era. Next up is 2008. This year began with Federer contracting mono, which would throw him off a bit. In the middle of the season, Federer made a ton of finals but lost most of them, including a total destruction by Nadal at the French, and widely considered as the greatest match of all time at Wimbledon 2008, also to Nadal. Despite winning the US Open, he would have some surprising losses and Federer would get a back injury at the Masters Cup round robin. After that, we got 2010. The year, quite the opposite of 2008, had a fantastic start and end as Federer won the Australian Open and ATP Finals. Federer made plenty of finals again in the middle of the season but lost pretty much all of them. He would also lose both grass tournaments that he played in, which is quite rare. Both 2008 and 2010 were very similar years that I think fit the C tier. One year that may be surprising to you guys is 2015. Federer, who won 0 Grand Slams that year, didn't actually do too bad, but he had a big mental block against Djokovic, who beat him in the finals of Wimbledon and the US Open, and was 5 out of Federer's 11 losses. He had some great matches, but seemed to fall apart in the important matches, especially against Djokovic. Coming up is the B rank. There are only 2 years in this one, 2009 and 2012. 2009 was the only year past Federer's prime where he made it to all Grand Slam finals. It was also the only year that he won the French Open, without a doubt one of the most important tournaments of his career. After a rough start by losing to Nadal at the Australian Open and to Djokovic in Miami, where he had the famous racket smash, he redeemed himself and got the Roland Garros Wimbledon double. Federer had a chance to win all 4 Grand Slams that year, but even if he didn't, it was still a great year for him. 2012 included beating Djokovic and Murray en route to winning Wimbledon, getting silver medal in the Olympics, and returning back to number 1 in the world rankings. Even after his Australian Open loss to Nadal, he won 3 tournaments in a row. Speaking of which, his matchups with Djokovic, Nadal, and Murray were pretty even, and Federer was definitely a big part of the Big Four dominance that year. There were some lost chances like against Djokovic in the ATP Finals, but without a doubt, 2012 was a really good year for Fed. A tier features 3 years that showed the greatness of Federer. These years were all extraordinary in some way and he played really well. The first one is 2004. This is the first year where Federer won 3 out of 4 slams, and it was the beginning of his prime dominance. There are still moments of weakness for Federer, but in general he suffered a lot less losses than normal and ended the year with 3 straight tournament wins. He also made his way to the number 1 ranking for the first time ever that year. 2007 would be the last year of Federer's prime, and the last year he would win 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams. His Australian Open win was at a whole nother level, and he had a nice winning streak that included wins at Cincinnati and at the US Open. Unfortunately, he did have some shocking losses to players like Kanyas and Volandri, but despite that, he was still very dominant. I would say that both 2004 and 2007 were very similar. The last year I put in A is 2017. After coming back from a 6-month break, Federer did what no one expected and managed to win 2 Grand Slams, which were the Australian Open where he played 3 5-set matches, and Wimbledon where he didn't drop a single set. He was also 4-0 against his biggest rival Nadal. Especially with his age, this was truly a special year for Federer and something that we won't really see with anyone for a long time. Now we have made it all the way to the S tier, where Federer played absolutely terrific, nearly perfect, and at just his absolute best. We'll start with 2005. This year was scary for the ATP Tour, as Federer only suffered 4 total losses, all by fantastic players, and 2 of them nearly went his way. His entire game made him almost unbeatable as he won 11 titles just like he did in 2004. Although he didn't win the Australian Open, this was a very well done year for Federer and it deserves to be an S tier. While 2005 was already excellent, 2006 was a step up from that. Only 2 people managed to beat him that year, young Nadal and Andy Murray. Otherwise, Federer won a record 12 titles in that span of 12 months, showing his dominance over almost every single player Federer had to face. This would be the peak of his prime, and most definitely his best year ever. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm sorry if you disagree with these, but I thought it would be interesting to show you my thoughts on Federer's career and put those years all in a list. If you guys want, I can do the same for Nadal and Djokovic, although I don't know nearly as much about them as I do Federer. I have some great videos coming up, so get ready for that. Peace out.